I'm Angela Roper, and I'll start now. So welcome everybody, I'm Angela Roper, and I'm going to be facilitating the webinar, Create What Matters and Test What Counts. And on behalf of Assurity, I'd like to welcome you all here today. At Assurity, we believe our clients' future depends on better meeting the customer's needs. We take a human-centered approach in everything we do and co-design the right outcomes with our clients. We achieve this by forming unique solutions teams from our analyst, test, DevOps, design thinking, process automation, agile, customer experience, and education service lines. We partner with the country's largest organisations and government agencies, collaborating with them to guide them on their digital transformations. We have proven capabilities to innovate, deliver complex projects with speed and quality, and improve our clients' operational efficiency and effectiveness. So before we get into introducing our speakers today, we just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Just a reminder to everybody that there's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you can type your questions into there, that would be fantastic. We will be doing questions at the end of the session. You have the option of doing these anonymously, or you can have your name there. Either we would prefer, but the more questions will really add to pulling out the experience from these two really talented speakers today. We're also going to record this webinar. So if you'd like, we're going to share the link to everybody. So if you want to pass that on to anybody you think would be have value from watching this, please do. And at the very end, there's also going to be a short survey. So we'd love your feedback of what you thought of the session. That helps us improve what we're doing in the future. So to move on now to introducing our speakers. We can move the slide across. Fantastic. So as you can see on your screens, we have Simon and Shakar who are going to be presenting today. Shakar is also one of our client solutions managers who is in the digital delivery team. He has over 15 years of experience in software quality assurance, test delivery consulting, and people leadership. Shakar has delivered test efforts for the variety of solutions and industries, notably banking, trading, telecommunications, and government. Shakar's test delivery experience spans across markets from South Africa, the UK and New Zealand, including working with vendors in subcontinent and the Americas. Over the last 3 years, Shakar has led and managed the test and QA of CRM and ERP solutions end-to-end, including functional, integration, performance, operational readiness, and business acceptance testing. And joining him today is Simon Holbrook, who is our Head of Design Innovation at Assurity. Simon is a futurist, strategist, and innovation leader sought out for his creativity and vision. He is experienced in the application of human-centered design and design thinking processes to deliver commercial results. Simon's passion is unlocking innovation through the exploration of user experience and early-stage prototype development. He's a bit of a serial entrepreneur, an innovator, and he successfully scaled several ventures, instilling empathy for the challenges business leaders face on the innovation journey. This is complemented by his experience with New Zealand Trade and Enterprise Better by Design program, where he completed international design thinking projects and collaborated with the Stanford D School to develop pragmatic tools designed to drive New Zealand businesses forward. Drawing on these experiences, Simon's focused on helping New Zealand organisations across the public and private sector launch disruptive products, services, experience, and transforming internal innovation cultures. So welcome to you both, and thank you again for everybody joining. Remember, please put questions as we go along, as you think of them, and we'll come back at the end of the session to answer those. So over to you, Simon and Shakar.
Thank you, Angela. That feels quite a tough act to follow, and Angela's available if you need help with your resumes afterwards as well. Thanks so much for that. So let's get into it today and really start to focus in on how you can create what matters and test what counts. We're just going to try and keep the content tight. We really would love to engage with you in Q&A, so please use the tools provided to you, and we'll do our best to help you with whatever's pressing you at the moment. We're going to talk about human-centered design firstly, which is a discipline designed to really help you create what matters, to understand the true customer problems you're trying to solve. And then we're going to talk a little bit about human-centered tests, which is a discipline designed to efficiently focus software testing towards assessing the most critical components so you can really test what matters the most. We'd like to share a few tools that we like to use. I think we've got 3 specifically, and then a couple of case studies where we've applied them practically, which I hope sets you in motion with a few ideas or questions that you might like to talk to us about. There'll be a few consistent themes that emerge through the talk, and we'll get into those actually as we go. So let's dive into the content first. What is human-centered design? And why should you really be using this? And I think at its core, human-centered design is a discipline designed to bring speed, quite a fast cadence into your work, but really helping you, I believe, regain objectivity again. And one of the challenges we have inside our businesses is the more we become aware of what we're able to create, the more possibilities and opportunities we see. However, often the customer's only looking to you for 1 or 2 critical things. And the challenge is to almost regain this objectivity again, to step outside of ourselves and to review our business, our services, our experiences, our products through the eyes of the first user, the beginner's mindset. And the best way to do this is to really go meet your customers in context, understand their latent needs, their pain points, where they're suffering friction from what you're doing today, and then trying to bring that into the core of your development practices, and ideally being able to hand that over to our software testers. And I can't describe how important it is to be able to almost diffuse the myriad of opportunities and just focus in on those mission critical aspects of delivery, especially when time, resources are just so thin nowadays.
Cool. Good morning, everybody. So what's human-centered testing? So just like you were talking about, Simon, as in engaging with your customer, that's what we want to do in human-centered testing. So human-centered testing is an approach of placing the customer in the center of your test analysis and design phases, and including the customer on the testing journey all the way through to your UAT and sign-off phases. I think from a test perspective, we're really good at understanding the feasibility. Is this technology available for us to develop this? Is this viable from a business perspective? And we look at those 2 areas, but we don't really look at desirability from a test perspective, especially when doing our functional analysis. And that's something that we'd want to plug into our test processes so that we understand, or so that we can confirm that we're doing the right thing for the customer. If you were to Google human-centered testing, you're not going to come up with a lot. And I think that's the reason why as well. So at Assurity, we're trying to increase the voice of the customer in our testing so that we can achieve a better solution at the end.
Okay. So what problem do these disciplines solve? And then how might you start to connect them together? And I know that test and HCD might seem unlikely bear companions, but the 2 work magnificently together. And I think that one of the big things, like we mentioned, is this ability to regain objectivity. And this needs to be happening, I think, across the whole span of software delivery. Often we find things like user stories can be so devoid of context that it leaves testing and development teams really looking for a little bit more context, a little bit more information, and just trying to understand what's really happening. It also creates quite a challenge at first. I think there's often, Shkar, a fear that engaging with the customer, particularly further down the delivery pipeline, is going to create a degree of complexity or maybe contradict the status quo or what we're working on now. However, we find this is generally not the case. The users tend to strip away a lot of complexity and really help you bring this stark objectivity back into your delivery. And by that, it really sorts the nice to haves, I think, from these mission critical components. But key to this is, I think, sincere engagement with the customer, taking your ideas back out to them on a periodic basis, and also making sure that all elements of the team delivering in some way get the ability to connect with the customer, hopefully in situ, perhaps on video, maybe through photography. There's a range of tools available just to see how is your product being used, what's the user really trying to achieve with it. And again, just to remove the complexity away from what we're up to.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, on complexity. There's a paradox, Boninis paradox, where if a model is more defined, becomes more complete, it becomes less understandable. And similarly, as that model becomes more realistic, it also becomes less understandable. So when test analysts join a project, we usually find that we're presented with these quite complex models because they've been designed in such a way that it's at that stage right now for us to start our test development. So it's quite a task, and it often is a difficult task for us to perform analysis on these test bases. So extracting what's meaningful as a first point is often very important. Remember, the testers are in there to design as well. We do test analysis and design. So as part of the design process, we can include those stages of design and innovation. We can empathize with our testers. We can define our scenarios. We can ideate with them, and we can prototype our test scenarios so that we are ready to test, so that we're ready to bring them on to that. We can build that empathy in and then understand what matters and what's most meaningful for us to test and get us the best value.
I think critically, this leaning back to the customer periodically, it helps you avoid costly failures from pursuing dead-end opportunities. And so oftentimes we're looking at our feasibility, the technology we have available to ourselves, some of the financial constraints, but often we're missing, well, what does the customer actually need from this equation to begin with? And I think when you are able to engage with the customer legitimately, it gives you a unique confidence to pursue opportunities when things get difficult. You tend to unlock a bit of cause drive within the teams. This can often be very low fidelity work. There's really no impediment from you testing some of these ideas out following this end of this call. And here's an example with one of our clients, drawing screenshots. We're taking these back out into the streets, crashing and burning and failing. And this was $1 million project that wasn't going too well from user testing. This is happening at a very sort of fuzzy front end of the work. We're working with the development teams. In situ, this person here is head of technology in the organization. But then when you suddenly have this epiphany moment and you work out what's really matters most, it brings a unique confidence into the business to really charge ahead and perhaps do something quite unconventional. Sometimes what matters most might not be what's easiest to deliver, and that's when you really need to be able to back yourself, particularly when you're starting to lose objectivity again. You've got to get a product delivered. You just have to know that what you're doing is going to work. Otherwise, it's very easy to start folding under pressure or defaulting to minimum viable products over and above what might have been really desired in the first instance.
And then again, it's avoiding chasing those low-hanging fruit. An example I like to use to illustrate this is we might set as a test practice. So if we go into an organization that has a test practice with certain exit criteria for all of their projects, and one of those exit criteria is that we need to achieve a 95% pass rate. And we would target that. So that's the target. And I think it's natural under stress and under pressure when you have a reduced amount of time is to target that 95% pass rate and then execute within the areas that is going to help us achieve that goal, if that is one of our exit criteria. However, if we understood that customer's perspective and understood all of the functions that make up that workflow that is most important to them, then we can change our mindset from, okay, maybe we don't need to achieve a 95% overall pass rate. What we need to do is understand that we need to achieve 100% pass rate through these workflows so that we're delivering what matters or what counts. And then we can understand, okay, the rest of the areas can be reprioritized or deprioritized, or those issues aren't as significant as we initially thought of it. So
we're less worried about gamifying metrics and more worried about the great fight out there and doing what really is going to change the dial for our customers.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start, I think, look at some practical frameworks to do this in your own organization. And we hope, some of these might appear sophisticated on the surface, but at their essence, they're quite simple processes that you can build collaboratively with your team. So I'll get Shikar to kick off.
Okay, so user service maps or test process mapping And again, this is not a complex thing at all. And we've done this at quite a few of our clients already. So a user service map or a test process map is basically a diagram. It's a document that you will draw up. The key around this is developing this artifact together with your customer. So the idea is to go to your customer with a blank page. There would be a set of rules. As part of the test strategizing and planning, we would set up the structure of how we would like to develop our test process mapping or user service mapping. So it is structured, but it's not formal. It's not something that needs a project sign-off. It's a living document. And you can see from this picture, and this isn't the actual test process map, it's on the left, which is cut off a little bit, unfortunately. But this is an elaboration of that map. So we would draw up the map with the customer. And by doing that, we're engaging with them. We're empathizing with them. They're understanding and appreciating the process that we go through with testing. That is one of the benefits. The other benefit that we found really insightful is that we can understand their pain points. We can understand where they're coming from as a user, as a customer, as the business, and then detail and structure our test effort accordingly so that we are focusing on the right areas. I think the key is understanding the focus. This is something that as it develops, the test team or the testers take a lot of pride in it, and so do the customer. Because you can see from this picture, it's displayed out wide and open and proud, and it also acts as a mechanism for people to talk to and communicate their ideas, or to find gaps, or just be proud of this thing that we're developing, that we're creating.
I mean, there are some humorous stories Shikaj shared with me, but I think it's often customer insights teams or market-led teams are quite shocked when test teams come at them asking for insights and ethnography and user insight. But you can see it's just such a potent way to move forward with things. I spoke before about real user stories, and we are such big fans of this at any part of the delivery cycle. If you are deep into delivery, it's not too late to start engaging with a user. You can use them to start adapting what you're doing and maybe just make micro steps towards reorientating a product back towards customer need. We prefer to work with real users, take real photography. It's faster. You need to be scared if your personas and customer insight are being developed internally within workshop type environments. We find those sort of personas tend to agree with all of your great ideas and what you're working with, and you just don't get the challenge that a real life scenario will provide you. We find the challenge isn't a capitulation. It will actually excite you, lead to inspiration, and show you things that you just didn't know you didn't know. But I think the real catch with this, Shikaj, is you must work in tandem with your delivery teams. And then what this will do is avoid overly ambitious solutions that are just entrenched in technical debt. If you let somebody like myself loose, I'm going to design an ideal state with a user, but it just might not be feasible. So when we begin the work, we're often trying to link up with our test and development counterparts as fast as we can to understand, well, what is the reality of this organization? What are the things that are inbounds? What's out of bounds? And what that will do is help us really operate within a constraint that's healthy for the business, and I think create a desirable experience that's also realizable for your business. You're actually able to move forward with this. And we've got a few examples downstream that can show you, perhaps where this can go wrong and then where it can go right for you as well. And then finally, feasibility maps is something we often do when we're running as an innovation space, particularly with a lean team, which is comprised of development, software testing, user experience, customer experience. We think you're at your most potent when you're bringing these teams together and operating not in silos, but as one cohesive unit. And what this is doing, I know the picture's a little bit small on screen, but on the top is a desired customer experience. It's been built through user testing and user feedback. It's been transferred into a series of app flows, which have been designed and tested with the users to make sure they're developing utility for the customer, or solving a wicked problem, or removing a point of friction within the current experience. But then beyond that layer, we're starting to dive into, well, what are the technology stacks that this user experience is drawing from? What firewalls is it accessing? and really trying to bring the technical complexity of an environment up onto the surface. So, really the design teams can start to understand, well, we know this matters, but this might be impossible, but here's the intersection of what we have the technological ability to do and what the customer's looking for. And I find it to be a most powerful conduit to bring several sort of different lenses and different teams together, so you can actually be inspired by yourselves, and you'll be amazed what people who are normally sort of further away from the customer world can bring just through objectivity again and being inspired by what these maps do. And they're an amazing way to even align your stakeholders and management around an opportunity. I think it almost diffuses some of the complexity of our own jargons and languages and vernaculars we use within our own disciplines to make it explicit and obvious about what we're trying to do. Very, very powerful. We'll actually dive into this one in a moment and look at it used in context with the customer. Okay, so what does this look like in action? We find it easier to almost look at these deployed as a case study. So we've picked two, which are sort of a little bit different, but very large scale organizations. But I think the caveat is these things are applicable even at startup level if you just really have a go at it. So let's go to the first one here.
Cool. So this is at Inland Revenue, and I just want to touch back on when you spoke about the real user stories and the feasibility maps just earlier. It talks to those two components. It's engagement with the customer and visualization.
Yeah.
And we know visualization works. It's no secret or it's no mistake why our offices are littered with sticky notes all over. So visualization works. We know it works. And engagement with the customer, that's really important. So at Inland Revenue, and this is a bit of a bit of history around service data maps. So we started using service data maps as part of one of the transformation enabling projects, which was a middleware replacement. And the problem that was trying to be solved at that time was understanding what regression needs to be done. Because if you're going to pull out and replace all of the middleware within an organization, that's a lot of regression. That would have literally taken us many years with a large team in order to regression test all of those front-end impacted functions. So the idea was that we bring in service maps and that we engage with the impacted parties to understand which flows are the most commonly used, and we could then prioritize and structure our regression test effort on that. That was hugely successful. However, we found that the benefits from engaging with the customers at this level were huge. They bought into the process. It turned what would have been a relatively boring sort of project for a customer because there's no difference from their perspective. Their front end stay the same, their functions stay the same because the middleware has been replaced. It brought them along the journey, and we got engagement from them on a project where they would have seen no change. They were invested in our issues and our defects. It enabled us to triage defects better. It enabled us to move into user acceptance test phases and sign-off phases better, because we were able to create champions within the business using these methods and building in the empathy by using the service data map. Since then, since that project, it's been used in almost every other project in some form at Inland Revenue, and we're using it currently on other programs, as you've seen in other pictures as well, which really brings the business on board and increases the voice of the customer in test. And we see that in the software that we deliver.
I think it encourages participation regardless of experience and qualification. Everyone can participate in these and add to it.
Yeah.
Then second one here is New Zealand Post, and this is that same feasibility map I showed you previously, actually on the wall, built up as a visual artifact behind us. And why we chose this one is New Zealand Post had partnered with a fantastic user experience company, and it brought to us an experience that they wanted to enact and get running as fast as possible. And as such, it was a little bit further down the delivery path, but we found that there are assumptions within this experience that we needed to diffuse. So we went back out to the customer again and began engaging with their partners and organizations and started to test off our most critical assumptions first, and really trying to replace these with facts and remove any blind spots from things. And as part of that, we started to develop a revised set of wireframes built in conduit with the customer we're still following the user experience that's been described to us, but very quickly, trying to pivot where necessary and bring the technology into this. And I think the most profound change here was really giving the development and test teams, which were actually working in tandem together on this project, a voice straight into the customer world and bringing them into what we are doing. That took place in many ways. Where possible, we were taking our testers into customer interviews, so they're able to see it firsthand. And we're hearing things like, now I know, Simon, exactly what you're trying to achieve here. And that cost us, I think, all of about 3 hours' time to do that. I think some kind of Pareto principle survives with this work. You don't want your testers doing every single interview, and you probably don't want your user experience, I guarantee you don't want your user experience staff doing the test scripts and doing that work. But an understanding of what each other is trying to achieve leads to a much more potent outcome. It heightens speed, it heightens delivery, but it's also highly communicable. And the people in the photograph here are members of the New Zealand Post board. And I think what's happening in this moment is it's really starting to calibrate the executive, the pressures of the organisation, with the reality of what the team's grappling with on the ground and trying to remedy. And then I found these people, which normally, a lot of financial pressure, are starting to unlock technical solutions, or with the team start to pivot in real time, going, okay, well, this is difficult here, or this is unrealistic on the technology, let's try this part instead. And the other thing, it really gave every idea its own time and space. So I'm sure we've all on the call had moments where you're perhaps getting much, much closer to the delivery coalface and a random idea comes in from left field saying, well, hey, what about this? And what this will allow you to do is say, well, where does this idea actually fit within the experience? And at worst case, well, maybe you have to adapt and ink it in. Best case, the person suddenly has an epiphany, like, actually, maybe this is corrosive or is going to create friction. Let's just leave that away for now. So it keeps some of the noise away from what's happening in the organisation. What it also does, I think, gave the development and software teams a big packet of Panadol and pain relief, because this experience required drawing from 28 different and disparate technology stacks within the organisation, which in itself was just an enormous task. And I think in creating this asset first, it allowed all teams to calibrate with each other, but also just brought a degree of honesty into the organisation about this is the complexity of what we're trying to achieve. So perhaps in moments where pressure might normally be applied, instead these members are trying to help and unlock opportunities. And I think you'll see through this, there's been a recurrent theme about being visual with the work, regardless of the discipline. It's imperative to get things off monitor and up onto the walls where others can lock onto it and share and build and collaborate with you. The other thing we find is the more we build up these maps in analog fashion first, working with post-it notes, like Shakar said, we can handle much, much greater data sets. And what we find, particularly over the last few years of working digitally, is the amount of information we can juggle is much, much narrower when we're looking on screen or dealing with things digitally. So we find if you're able to work in this manner and just get things up on the wall, you can deal with a lot more complexity and perhaps see patterns that might normally be hidden working in a purely digital world. So again, this is really a tool here that's starting to bring financial reality and technical complexity together with user experience into quite a pragmatic map. And I know this one looks complicated, but it was designed over a 6-month period, and it did begin in quite a simple manner and then just evolved as we learned more, as we understood what needed to be tested, what was breaking, and what might be better. So I think that just about brings us to time. We've just got a few sort of key outtakes from the webinar before we really engage with Q&A with you. I think the first thing from me is just it's never too late to engage with real users, but they've got to be the real customer. If you're not having the permission in your organisation to do so, break the rules and go and do it. Step outside of your building and go talk to the customer. If you've got an intuition something's wrong, that might confirm it, or at least give you the ability to articulate a problem that we need to work with the customers more so you can start to win on that front. Always work collaboratively and avoid silos. You'll just be amazed where the best ideas come from. But I find if you're not sort of working in if you're not working analog or creating some of these assets, the handovers between teams start to get a little bit clunky and you can tend to drop the baton or wind up with sort of meetings where you're trying to infer this is what we're doing. Whereas if you just have the moment to see things together, it stops that from happening and really accelerates delivery. And I think also, critically, it cuts away the noise and it will allow you to focus on what's mission critical and the real problems you're solving. And quite often what you think you're offering a customer and what the customer is really seeking from you are quite different things. So, if you don't have the ability to begin with the customer world, don't let that stop you. There's always an opportunity to go out, recalibrate, and adapt what you're doing to fit best with the user.
Cool. Thanks for that, Simon. And I know we've got it separated on screen here, but I think from a test perspective, all of those things are key takeaways as well from a test. But if I were to focus more in on the test area, it shifts the focus to areas that really count, and it increases team efficiency. But it's easy to say it increases team efficiency, but how? For an example, all of the testers out there would understand what I mean about exciting discussion that happens at defect triage meetings. And we would have many defects because everybody is really pushing for their defects to be resolved. But once we have that lens on what counts for all of our customers for this solution that we're working on, then we're able to differentiate between severity and priority better. Yeah. So we would come out with, say, 10 severity, high severity defects. But which one of those high severity defects would take priority? So then we would understand, okay, these 5 are the high priority ones, high severity, and then the remaining ones remain high severity, but can be at a lower priority because we've already done the work to understand this is what the customer wants, and this is where we're going to focus our resources. So it increases team efficiency from a test perspective, from a developer perspective. It puts everybody on the same page. The second one improves user adoption of the solution and creates champions within business. I touched on this a bit earlier as well. Engaging, it's an engagement. It's getting to know your customer, them getting to know you, and building that relationship so that they do become champions within your organization.
And falling in love with your customers' problems.
Yeah, and that's not something that you need to try to do. You don't need to go in there and say, I'm going to make you a champion. I think this process naturally brings people to that stage, and then they move into the user acceptance phases better. They're more accepting of the test process and the development process. And then deliver software that works for our users, for our customers. I think that's the most important one. And that's the objective for us, is making sure that the customers are catered for.
Yeah, we create what matters and test what counts. Okay, so look, that draws the talk to a conclusion.
Fantastic.
So hopefully there's some questions, Angela.
There absolutely are. So thanks, Simon and Shakar. There was a lot of chatter there, and we've also got a number of questions as well. So I'm actually going to start backwards because we have talked a lot, you've both talked a lot about visualization and the importance of maps. So the first question we have from Nicola is, I love the visibility of these maps within the workplace. Aside from Miro, scheduling workshops, demos, Q&As, do you have any suggestions to replicate that online in an online space, in a work from home space that we have currently?
Look, it is really hard. Yes, Miro is good. I think that's I'll be careful here. I really am an analog person and love working that way. I think you need both. Like even I think before lockdowns, we used both platforms. We'd work analog and then try and flip it into Miro boards, just so that organisation can take almost the post-its away with them. And at a point, the post-its become a pain in the backside, and it is easier to start manipulating digital things. I think even you can use Miro, but you can also just draw things on paper and PDF those just to share and get things moving a little bit quicker. There's just a fine line with fidelity. I think when you're beginning, you want to be a little bit rougher and looser with things, but then over time, you almost need to harden what you're doing and maybe design them a little bit further. And you can just use Keynote or PowerPoint or anything for that if you don't have access to better design tools. But I think it's often dangerous just to start in that digital environment first and treat that as be all and end all. I'd really be encouraging you to draw things out first, and it's just something different about it. You're a little bit more fluid with your ideas. Sorry, I just noticed my name spelled wrong. Just caught my surprise there. Yeah, I can't prefer that.
I think I'll pop in there, Simon. I think that needs must at the moment. I think we've got all of our projects are remote at the moment and are online. So I've just popped Mural as another one that we use, which is really fantastic. What it has mean, there are some benefits on it, is that you often get stakeholders that maybe won't come to a physical meeting. And you also have an artifact that you can still take people through afterwards. So if anybody does want any help or have a look at what some of these projects look like, we've got some internal ones that we could show you. Feel free to reach out to myself or Simon, but we are also looking in the future at holding a seminar around facilitation. It does take more time. You do have to do more planning if you're doing it online, because you don't have the chemistry and that dynamic that Simon talked about, everybody in the room.
I think also, Angela, you can sit here in front of a camera, in front of a paper, and just start drawing what the teams are saying while you're on the call. And you might just find it a little bit easier to get traction. I find, I don't know if you but when you go into that digital world, you suddenly start second guessing yourself, get worried about what you're writing. Does this make sense? Whereas I think when you're drawing, it's just a little bit more flexible and easier to get going. So I think, if you can, try start there first, and you'll get a lot more progress. And then, there are tools, but I think the tool's not as important as, the act of the collaboration to begin with.
Yeah, I think especially during that first lockdown that we had, it was really a struggle, because we moved from a space of being able to be visual in the office to being behind your desk at home. And I think what we found in the second lockdown, as we became more accustomed to working online, is that we became better at collaborating online. You lose the visualization aspect of it, as in you're not able to market or to advertise what you're doing easily on the floor. But we get more creative on how we get that sort of exposure to get that out there, to show people the work that we're doing, to make our work visible.
Right. I'm just going to say, on that point of collaboration, we've been talking about human-centered design and test. We have a question from Kelly around the BA role in this process. Loves what we're talking about from a test perspective, but just wondering if these insights should have been caught by a BA up front rather than waiting for test design.
It can. I think it just depends on the organisation and how you're working. We love working with BAs, particularly on the feasibility maps, because they're able to start fleshing out business rules and a lot of the constraints that might often be hidden to teams. So it's not an either or, it's a yes and for us. On that post situation, the team we designed was given to us by the board in some regards, and it was already a long way down the track. But what we find is that a BA skill set can really accelerate trajectory. It can almost save months of your time. Or what we found ideally is have the BAs go into organisation first and start to bring some of the feasibility and workflows in. So when the user experience arrives of what needs to happen, you can converge much, much faster.
Great. Yeah. Now, just see, we've got just over 5 minutes left. So got quite a few more questions coming through now, which is fantastic. One of those is around great keeping customers engaged in the process. How would you manage regularly engaging customers and keeping them in the loop with developments on their involvement, with ensuring you are working with a broad base of customers instead of the same ones repeatedly?
Look, I think that it is hard. We often in our team think 3 to 5 customers is enough to get some challenge and diversity. You just don't want to talk to the same people all of the time. Can you just repeat the question, but Angela? It's so hard not being able to read as well.
So this is more, so it's more around, yes, we might be talking to customers, but often we're talking to the same customers over and over again.
Yeah, thank you. Look, we just try to work with extremes. So just think who's your greatest detractor, greatest advocate, or even draw some spectra with 2 lines and work out, maybe big customers, small, medium, large, and just make sure that you're going through different people all the time. And that can be a little bit intimidating, but what you'll find is you'll start to get consistent themes through regardless of who you're talking to. And think, well, that's actually what we need to lock onto and deal with. To be honest, that's probably a whole keynote talk to itself, and that might not be a satisfactory answer for every answer there, but please reach out to me and I can give you some really practical tools of how to go about that.
Yeah, and I think in strategizing a human-centered test approach, it comes in at the beginning. It comes in that strategy and planning phase to identify that broad spectrum of stakeholders that you can leverage off. So that's really important. So we're not going back to the same people all the time.
Do you know, in worst case, it just doesn't matter. As long as the person is outside of the process and unaware of it, they'll just, again, bring that objectivity and all that. I don't get it. Why the heck are you doing that? And that's sometimes just the reality check you need. So you're not drinking from the Kool-Aid.
Great. So we have another question here around how would you recommend dealing with business leaders who agree with customer testing, but are hell-bent on test and learn in the market?
Can we elaborate on test and learn in the market?
Ilse, are you online? I'm not sure. I think so is that testing before?
Sounds more like build the plane while you're flying it rather than having perfection first. It might be contextual thing depending on the organization. But I think somewhere like IR that's mission critical, you probably don't want to build the plane while you're flying it. You've got to make sure it works before 500,000 people log onto your website in the next hour.
Yeah, I think it depends on the risk profile for that implementation or that project and understanding, okay, we're going into a beta basically in production and we want to get that, but it helps immensely in getting that customer feedback before we move into that phase.
Yeah, I think what Ilse is saying here is she's made a note saying not wanting to test during discovery. So I think it's also the testing with customers and discovery as well, which is really important, which is what we've talked about.
Yeah.
And I think we're just moving on to maybe one more question we've got. How do you differentiate the importance of delivering the MVP versus blue sky?
Well, I think if I can answer it, you don't want to deliver blue sky either, but you definitely want to deliver the minimum desirable product. And that sometimes can be a little bit divergent from what you've been tasked to do. And that can be challenging, but why it's so necessary to engage with real people. If you're creating internal personas that disagree with what's happening, it's probably going to turn into quite a personal argument. But if you've spoken to 3, 4, 5 customers who are uniformly saying this is not going to work, it's not really you challenging the organization, it's you trying to help the organization to reconcile a customer that's probably not going to use the product out the other end. And I think what that will do is allow people to arrive at their own epiphany, which is actually much more potent and a lot less combative if you're getting into a little bit of a debate about things. That again, like you do need to test, and you can have quite set test criteria in that user experience world, but it's more a case of taking early ideas back out into that person, but also acknowledging when you're failing and not just routinely polishing them up and changing. You have to actually go, this has failed, it's not working, what's next? And I think bring some of the test rigor that Shikar's team offers into that user experience world.
Fantastic. We do have, now just realized we've got a minute to go, so we've got a couple of things to cover. And I'm just thinking the last question actually talks about the time frame. So it's an iterative process. We understand that, but what's the time frame you want to give to it? I'm wondering if that leads in nicely to another Ask the Trainer program we've got coming up for customer centricity, which is really talking more specifically about the delving more into human-centered design. So as Simon said, there's some of those questions there were topics into themselves. So we do actually have a course coming up in March. It's an online course. We do have, as a warm-up to that, we have an Ask the Trainer session. So that's tomorrow morning for half an hour. If you have more questions around human centricity, or you're interested in that course, or you think your teams would really find it helpful to get some tips on how to do some of these things. It's all very well us saying that, but having some skills and having some trained professionals who can help guide you through it and do some examples is a great way to start this journey. So tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for half an hour, if you'd like to come along to that. Cass has just popped that in the chat, so feel free to click the link, register for it. You can find some more information about what we're covering, but also what the course is covering as well.
Yeah, I think if you're in that blue sky world, you need to be moving very, very quickly, testing ideas very, very quickly before you fall in love with them. It'll help you stay objective. And I think if you're more in the deeper end of delivery, it's going to be more considered, and you're probably adapting ideas more around what's already happening and just trying to things back towards the customer than just recreating things. That that doesn't really work either. So it's good props, man. Ask those two on screen tomorrow. They're wiser than us. They can help you out.
Fantastic. And so thank you for Simon and Shakar. That was really great. And thank you everyone for the engagement. There were some really great questions there. Feel free again to reach out to us if there's anything that you want to talk to in more detail. Cass is also putting into the chat the link to our survey. So we'd love to get feedback. It's always helpful for us to drink our own champagne and hear what you're saying and how we can improve, and also any other topics that you'd like us to cover. So if there's something that you think needs to be expanded on, then we'd love to hear that as well. So please go into the survey, give us some feedback, and hopefully we'll see a lot of you tomorrow at the at the Ask the Trainer conversation. Fantastic. Thanks everyone. Have a great morning.
Thanks everybody.